Deer Tracking Services, training stalkers and their dogs to track wounded deer.
Welcome to Deer Tracking Services and what we hope to be a short series of videos showing you what's involved in training your dog and yourself to track and follow up wounded deer. So today we're going to start off with the basic equipment that you need to set up and start training your pup or your dog as a novice. Now the equipment we've got here is a bit mixed and matched. You don't need expensive equipment, and at the same time you can go as far as you like with expense and quality, but at the end of the day you can get away with spending very little money but just knowing what you need and how to use it. So we're going to start off today with tracking shoes. These are an essential piece of kit. This is the first item up. This is like the entry level when it comes to tracking shoes. This is a half shoe, conventionally made out of steel or alloy. It clamps by the use of straps to the back of your boot and has a retaining mechanism to hold your deer's cleave in the back here. Now these often come in a various different few guises of how they actually tension and hold the cleave. This is like an exhaust clamp from the automotive industry, which is a very secure system of doing it. They often come with wing nuts instead of nuts. We find those very difficult to tension, so we go for the conventional nut and use either a spanner or a socket. So that's the entry level. They probably come in around about 60 or 80 pounds. Each pair of shoes I show you here, and the price is per pair. So next up from that is a rubber soled version. These are a German variety, very flexible, very useful. Again, have webbing straps to secure to the whole of your foot. When new, they do have holes in the bottom with threads in that you can, if you wish, put football studs or golf shoe studs in the bottom to give you extra grip. The retaining mechanism with these is generally like a hose clamp from the automotive industry, but again we replace these with an exhaust clamp. They last longer and they hold the cleave a lot more securely. So that's those. They probably now pitching around about £140 mark on the internet. Beauty of these is they can be put into a chest freezer or a freezer in the house if you're allowed to do so, with a cleave still in there. So if you've had one training exercise, you don't have to strip them down. You can put them in the freezer, take them out, let them defrost, use them again. So moving on up from that is another version. These are probably the most expensive that you can get out there, but again you do get what you pay for with these. In this instance, these are made from an aircraft grade alloy. They look cumbersome, but in fact are probably the most easiest to walk in. They have retaining systems to go on your boot and to hold the cleave at the back. These are pretty much copied from the winter sports industry for like skis and snow footwear. It's like a very fast, secure ratcheting system. These are available online, and last time I looked were around about the £240 mark. So the next thing we're going to need are disposable gloves, not only because they keep your hands clean, but obviously we are using deer body parts. We are using blood, we are using cleaves, head, skin, so we have a disease risk or possibility of contamination to think about. So disposable gloves pretty much are a must. So other than gloves, we then go on, we're going to need blood. So we have here deer's blood in what is considered an approved type of dispenser slash bottle. The bottle holds at most 200 ml of blood. It has a nozzle on it that can actually be trimmed down to adjust for flow of blood. Very useful, very good. They freeze well with blood inside them. You can take them out, defrost the blood, no problem. You do not need an approved type bottle like this. You can get away with something like a child's fruit shoot bottle, which the juice comes in. They have like a little nozzle type of device that you can just pull and squirt blood out of. Other than that, simple things like an old ketchup bottle. Obviously there's a lot of capacity there, but again, holds the blood. They freeze pretty well, thaw out pretty well, and they're very good at dispensing blood. So next up on the list, you're going to need cleaves to go into your tracking shoes. So what we've got here are fallow. It depends on your location, your area, and what you're deciding to train your dog on. When you keep and store your cleaves, it's very important to keep them as a diagonal pair. So that's like a front right and a rear left. The reason being for this is on the front cleaves, in between, we have an interdigital gland, which is a bit like a deer's footprint, and it will put that print and, if you like, print or scent down into the ground when you are walking in your tracking shoes. The rear cleave, however, does not have an interdigital gland, but further up its leg is a metatarsal gland, which in itself gives off a scent, and when the deer's walking around rubbing on things, that scent can extend all the way down to the cleave area, and again that puts its footprint, if you like, of scent down into the ground. So keep them as a diagonal pair tied together. Next up, you're going to need a knife. Doesn't have to be a super duper fancy one, as long as it's sharp and can be kept sharp. If you're using a fixed blade, obviously a protective sheath is really good. Cheap as chips, kitchen knife you can probably buy for about £2. Doesn't matter if you lose it. This one is really bright, so when you put it down on the grass you can find it, which is an added bonus. Next up, we have the cleaves, which we're attaching to the tracking shoes. Obviously the length of the cleave can be a bit cumbersome in the shoe when we're walking, so we can actually reduce the cleave by cutting it and reducing its length. So an ideal length would be to cut it somewhere around here, sever it. This can be done in many ways, and we find the best way is a pair of pruning shears. These are obviously something that most of us have in the garden shed, or they're very cheap to buy if you need one specifically for your tracking work. Alternatives to pruning shears are a bone saw, a hacksaw, or if you're that way inclined, when you're first getting your cleaves and you're cutting them all down, you can even use like a disc grinder or an angle grinder. I will warn you that if you choose that option, it can get a bit smelly when it's cutting through the bone, so just be advised on that, but it's a very effective way of cutting them. When you do cut your cleaves, the little bits that you cut off, keep those. You're going to want those for laying your trap at a later date, so keep them all together, and ideally don't cut them off until you're ready to put them in the shoe and go tracking.